challenger, former State Representative Steve Carter, for being with us, and thank you for coming. And I know some of you will have questions, so if you do, could you, and don't block the cameras, but could you just stand up so I can see you if you have a question as we move along. But we'll open as we did in the primary, this time with two candidates. The mayor received 48% of the votes in the November 3rd primary. Steve Carter received 20% of the votes, and the way we have it, there's a runoff on December 5th, which is this Saturday. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening question, and then to do what we did last time, but to start with it, we'll have each candidate ask each other a question, and then we'll move forward with questions from the moderator and from me. Angela says we've got 2 minutes for opening statements. So let's start with, in alphabetical order, Mayor Sharon Weston Brew. Mayor.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you to the Press Club for affording us another opportunity to share on this campaign journey. Since we started this journey of re-election, I think I participated in probably a dozen or more forums and debates, and certainly here we are bringing the close to the election season, and my message is consistent. My message is that in the past 4 years as mayor president, I've had an opportunity to move us forward as it relates to recovery from the 2016 traumatic year, whether it was the Alton Sterling killing, the killing of our police officers, or the great flooding of 2016. Immediately, I went to work in 2017 to bring resolution to those issues. First, by starting with police reform for our police department, then moving forward in securing funding for flood mitigation with projects like the Stormwater Master Plan and our 5 tributary projects, but I didn't stop there. I continued with some of the goals that I had established beyond those goals that dealt with 2016. Goals like attacking transportation and traffic issues. And as a result, I was able to come up with the largest infrastructure project in the history of Baton Rouge, Rouge EBR, almost $1 billion project, which not only will transform our city as it relates to roads, transportation, and traffic mitigation, but in addition, it is stimulating and will stimulate our economy. I have been here bringing transformative leadership in trying times and casting a vision not only for the 4 years that I have been mayor, but for the future as well. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. It is chilly. Not a big cold weather fan, to be honest with you. I like to play tennis outdoors when it's warm, so I'll be in better shape to kill it. Anyway, thank all of y'all for being here. Jim, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for your service, and best of luck to you. I don't know how many people, I hope that they know who I am. I've lived in Baton Rouge all of my life, with the exception of 5 years when I was in the military. I really enjoyed my military service, and I learned a great deal in the military. I learned how to lead, I learned how to work with people. Then I got involved in a youth camp business, and that's my passion, is kids. And I ran probably 11 or 12,000 kids through my tennis camp. I taught them about life, and I worked with them, taught them how to have pride in who they are and what they do, and to work very hard. Then I was very fortunate. Term limits came into effect in 08, but I ran in 07. I love public service. I love helping people. I love getting involved and tackling bold and tackling challenging projects and ideas. I was fortunate enough, I don't know how many of y'all know this or not, but by a whopping 87 votes, I defeated Kyle Orton for the state District 68 in the legislature. I served with our mayor. She was in the Senate at the time. I really enjoyed my time when I was in the legislature. And the key to it is, as I said before, I worked with kids, and my passion was education. And we needed education reform. I really believe that every youngster should have an opportunity to have the great life that all of us have had. And the main reason I feel like we've had a great life is we're educated. I'm very passionate about early childhood, but I also feel like our city has to go in a different direction. I got involved in this mayor's race mainly because I'm concerned about the crime, I'm concerned about the racial divide, I'm concerned about the flooding issues, I'm concerned also about economic development as well as a number of other things we can discuss here in a few minutes. I'm passionate about who I am and what I do. I want to surround myself with an outstanding staff that's creative and innovative, and I look forward to having an opportunity to be your next mayor president. Thank you very much.
You have a question?
I'll throw you a softball.
1 minute or so.
Sharon, you campaigned in 2016 on being the only candidate that can unify the parish after suing your own constituents, allowing homicide rates to increase drastically over the past 4 years, and enabling racial and political tensions to further divide our community. How do you still consider yourself a unity candidate?
I still consider myself the unity candidate because I have a diverse constituency that certainly supports the efforts that we have initiated, efforts surrounding equity and inclusion. But being a unity candidate does not mean you have to take a back seat to challenging issues that some people may not agree with. For example, you tend to lean towards and have said that you pretty much agree with the St. George effort. In contrast, I have not sued the citizens of our community surrounding St. George, but what I have done is said for the betterment and to unify this community, I believe it's imperative that we all work together and share goals. The litigation that we now have, and you might remember being in the state legislature, is actually prescribed litigation from law, prescribed law that says if you're going to stand up a city of that size, you should be able to put a plan in place.
Mayor, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Carter, I just heard you speak of your initiatives with youth camps, through your tennis, as a tennis coach. I want you to share with us today the issue of disinvested communities has been a common theme since 2016. As someone who is concerned about our community, tell me specifically, what have you done in the past 4 years to add value to those voices who have had concern about disinvestment, specifically in the North Baton Rouge area?
Well, those of you that know me, when I was in the legislature, we started what we call the Capital Region Legislative Delegation. That's 30 members, cross-section of different types of people. We work very hard together to try to improve the quality of life of the non-parish area. In doing so, we prioritized who we are, what we did. When we first got elected, I did, in 2008, the chamber brought to us 20 projects that were prioritized, mainly transportation issues. In the 12 issues I was there, we accomplished a great deal of those initiatives. We worked very hard to do that. I enjoy bringing people together. I had very controversial legislation that I introduced. In order to get that legislation passed, which I feel like we did a pretty good job of improving the educational system in the state, I had to go talk to people across party lines, different types of people, to ensure they understood what we were trying to do and would vote for our legislation. Thank you.
As we move along with questions, we'll go in the order that is fairest, and the mayor started, so the question will go first to Representative Carter and then to Mayor Broom. But what is the chief distinction between you and your opponent?
Well, first of all, she's female and I'm male. I don't know whether y'all realize that, but anyway. The chief distinction is, and I'm going to bring up a situation that occurred when you and I were in the legislature. A good friend of yours brought some legislation to me, and it was very controversial, it was bold, it had to do with education, it had to do with dropping the dollars down from the MFP and the federal government directly to principals. And a lot of the people did not like that. The school board here in Baton Rouge didn't like it, a number of other people didn't like it. We crafted a bill, which I thought was a very good bill, and I asked Raymond Jetson if he had an African American that could help me with that bill. And he said, sure, we share a room. And she came to 2 of the meetings and realized it was controversial and left me with the bill. My point in saying that, I'm not trying to pick on Sharon, I'm trying to make, the difference is that I'm willing to take on challenges. I'm willing to get my hands dirty and work very hard to ensure that whatever the problem may be, that I'm going to solve the problem. I'm not going to run away from the problem. That's one of the reasons why I think we're different.
Well, first of all, Mr. Carter, your recollection of that situation is a little different from mine. My recollection is that I joined a conversation with a group who wanted to talk about educational reform for Baton Rouge. The difference between you and me is that I am an independent, free thinker. I'm not a proxy for people who have a predisposed agenda that they want to insert me in and that I say amen to. I'm an independent, free thinker. And once I realized that this discussion was already decided and that I was just there as a place card to say amen and to bring other people into the conversation, I backed away from that because I am unbought and I am unbossed. But talking about getting things done, look at my track record over the past 4 years compared to you. They gave you the ball, Steve, to get the gas tax done, but you didn't get it done. They gave you the ball for some education issues. You didn't get it done. I get things done.
What has been your greatest professional setback as a public official, and how did you address it? Mayor?
I would probably say early on, I would name 2 things. Early on in my administration, I recognized that everybody is not made out of the same fabric that I am when it comes to honesty and integrity. Back in the day, when people said they had done and accomplished certain things, you believe them. Now, everybody have to do a very thorough background check on to make sure that they are who they say they are. The second challenge, I would say, is that overcoming the issue of being the first woman, an African-American woman in this position as mayor president. Unfortunately, there are some people who still rely on stereotypes and assess you and your work by the stereotypical information perhaps that they get from media or television, and constantly proving to people that because of the color of my skin and my gender, that my work is just as exceptional as anyone else's.
Biggest setback as a public official?
The question was, what's my biggest setback as a public official? I'm going to differ with you, Mayor, on my accomplishments in the legislature. I mean, you can look at the education reform, you can look at an awful lot of the projects that I had, and they were controversial, they were not easy to do. When you talk about choice, when you talk about vouchers, when you talk about micromanagement with superintendents in schools, and a number of other things that we did pass, and so I'm very proud of my record. As far as anything as a setback that I had bills. I had some very difficult, tough bills that I remember one that I had that had to do with the makeup of the boards of higher education. It was not an easy bill. I thought that you should have minimum requirements to be considered. I thought you had to have a background in finance or a background in running a business. That got defeated. I thought it was the right thing to do to try to help our education system. So that may be one of the ones that come to mind right now.
you're first up on this one, Representative Carter, but what do you see as the biggest reason for the increase in crime in this community in the last year in particular?
I think there are a number of reasons. And if I'm elected, I'm going to bring together the very best people that around the country that have solved this problem and assist us, because we do have a problem. In the last 4 years, we have an opportunity possibly to reach 450 murders in a 4-year period under the current administration. That's just unacceptable to me. And I think part of the problem has to do with the policing itself. You know, we're understaffed. We're understaffed where now, while we're having crime, we're having to be reactive. We can't be proactive. And we need to make sure that we fully staffed with our police force. Obviously the raises are very important too. But we need to make sure that everybody within this community understands how important it is that, one, they lock their cars, because that's where a lot of these people are getting the pistols, guns, etc., to perform these crimes. We're just not doing the things we need to do within the community. But there's a lot more I can talk about, but I don't have that much time, so thank you.
Repeat your question, Jim.
What is the biggest reason for the crime rate in
Because I want to be as specific as possible. The biggest reason for the crime that we've seen recently is COVID-19. I'm not a sociologist, I'm not a psychologist, but if you read information from Brookings Institute, if you get information from the federal government, if you look at the statistics that are going on throughout the country, there is an uptick in crime that is taking place. In fact, there's recent information that says crime has risen in the top 50 cities by almost 36%. But we have been proactive in our fight against crime. First of all, we have to say the truth. The truth is, our numbers were going down in 2018, 2019, and the beginning of 2020. The change, COVID-19. We are using now our police department to work with our citizens with our Safe, Hopeful, and Healthy initiative, which includes organizations like Rouge, to complement one another as we intervene with the violence.
We have great division in our country and in our community. What is the biggest reason for the division that we're facing as a people right now, Mayor?
The biggest reason for the division we're facing as a country, I would say, is that we have moved from being a nation of civic engagement and civility to charting a path where civility is no longer the norm, it's the exception. I remember, Steve, when I started in the legislature as an example, you didn't know who was a Democrat, you didn't know who was a Republican. That was when I first started decades ago, because we all worked together. But the partisan bickering that has taken place and the vitriol that has taken place continues to divide us as a country. I believe that we have more shared goals than we focus on. And the truth is that when we rally together around the shared goals and the shared vision, that is how we unify, not only as a nation, but as a community.
You know, I'm a big advocate of communication, getting to know people, visiting with people, talking to them about what our differences are. I don't think we do a good enough job within our community of talking, visiting. As an example, if you live above, say, Florida Boulevard, let's say that you live on Hollywood Street, there may be a person there who does not have a car, has a hard time getting to work. They may work at the Lady of the Lake. They have transportation issues. here in the southern part of the city where I live, I don't necessarily know those types of problems. I think I have to get, as a mayor, to know what the situation is and what the problems are with people in North Baton Rouge. Yet in the South Baton Rouge, bring them to us, and let's look at the back of what you're getting ready to get right now, your property taxes. Look at the millages that we're paying. They don't discuss the millages probably above Florida Boulevard, but we do. So we've got to understand each other, understand what our problems are, understand what their problems are, communicate and work together to solve the problem.
Representative Carter, if you are elected, who are some of the people that you would have in high places in your administration and Mayor Room? If you are re-elected, will you bring in new people or will you keep largely the same team you have in place?
Thank you, Jim. You know, that's one of the things I look forward to when I'm mayor. I love to put people together that are creative, that are innovative, and that are visionary. I want you to just think a second. What do you think Baton Rouge should look like, let's say in 2030 or 2040? It takes visionary people to think out that far. So I'm going to put the very best possible staff I can put together. I want to put someone, obviously, in the Chief Administrative Officer's position. I also want to put another person there. I visited with Stephen Goldsmith, who was the mayor of Indianapolis. He did a marvelous job with that city. He took a city sort of like Baton Rouge and moved it up the ranks to where it's one of the most modern, neatest cities that you can go to in the United States. I want to get people in my administration that think like that are creative and innovative, bring people together and talk about the problems and do the things that are necessary to make sure that everybody in our city enjoys living here, wants to stay here, and bring other people here so they can enjoy our wonderful city.
Do you have any names of people you're considering?
I'm not elected yet.
I'll start out by saying I had one of the shortest transitions in the history of Baton Rouge once I was elected. But we put together a great transition team, and we also put together some senior staff members and other department leaders who I believe have done an excellent job. Now, there's always room for improvement. So to answer your question, Jim, yes, some people will stay, and some people's careers may need to be redirected. However, what I'm going to do is give everyone an opportunity, especially our senior leaders, an opportunity to justify why they should be maintained in their role. Not only to justify it, but give me their vision that they have for moving this city 4 years forward. I don't have any names.
What is your perception, and this is for both of you, of the performance of our Chief of Police, Murphy Paul, Mayor?
Of course, I believe Chief Murphy Paul is a stellar Chief of Police. I am very delighted, and he's one person that I don't have to think about twice in terms of wanting to return to that position as Chief of Police. He has been able to, with his team, work to close the gap with the community and the police department. I get reviews consistently from citizens who say, we love Chief Murphy Paul. And why? That's because he has not stayed in his office, but he has gone out in the community. He calls people on a regular basis. If they call him, he calls them back. And so I believe that his performance certainly has been a great one of a great leader. But as all leaders, we all have room for improvement. And as I converse with the chief on a regular basis, I know some goals that he has to continue to move our police department towards 21st century pillars of policing, and I believe he will get there.
I personally don't know the chief, but I have gotten around to talk to people in the community, to talk to some ex-chiefs of police, and talk to a number of the people on the police force, just to get an idea of where we are and what we're doing. I'm concerned, one, with our morale. I think we have some problems within the morale in the police force. And as I said before, I don't understand why we're not fully staffed. We need to make sure that that the police are paid like they should be. And even with the pay raise that's being proposed by the mayor, we're still about 10% short of the regional average. So what happens? People come into the police force, they get some experience, and then they move on. And they move to Ascension, and they move to the sheriff's office, or they move to state police. So I would like to get into the policing, see where we are. The one thing I can tell you is that I will definitely have their back. Too many people are saying things bad about the police, and I think I'm the only person who has signed a pledge of all the candidates in the first primary and even in the second primary, saying I will not defund the police.
Representative Carter, when you were in the legislature, your primary focus was education. And in the next 4 years, if you're mayor, what will you do to address public education in this community? In Mayor Broom, you have now a track record of 4 years. What will you do in your second term if you were reelected?
Jim, getting up and down this much, I'm gonna lose some weight. You know, education is my passion. There's no doubt about it. Early childhood is critical. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in the legislature, they would come, school buses would come in just to observe and have a visit, be oriented about what goes on within the Capitol. When they would come into the house, I would go back to those youngsters in the first grade, second grade, third grade, or whatever it might be, and I would fist bump them. I'd get to know them. But you know what I did that I loved doing more than anything else? I would look into their eyes, and I'd look deep down into their heart, and every one of them had hope. And that's what I want to make sure that I do educationally here in East Baton Rouge Parish, is give every kid an opportunity to be successful in life. And it starts at birth, and if you want me to tell you how it happens, go look at West Feliciana. Lloyd Lindsay took a piece of the pie when we had the nuclear plant go up there, and he started early childhood in West Feliciana before anybody else did. You know what the #1 district in the state of Louisiana is year in, year out? West Feliciana. So I'm going to talk and do whatever I can do to pump money in and encourage our school board to make sure that early childhood is their top priority.
Before I talk about education, I need to educate our listeners on something that was said. First of all, I don't know who established the pledge about defunding the police, and I don't know if you got that from the police union. I'm not quite sure, but no one ever presented my campaign with that, because I would have quickly told them, of course, I believe in funding our police. Not only do I believe it, but we've done that. We've given our police department $27 million in investment in improving public safety with a steady focus, as I said, on 21st century policing. And unfortunately, campaigns are often riddled with rhetoric, and I believe in dealing with the facts. So that's my first educational point. My second educational point is I really understand your passion for education. I do think that perhaps, and we can talk about this later, Mr. Carter, I can see you doing something like being a superintendent of schools. That would be very good. But we've already established our Cradle to Cave program, which is an early childhood development program with the city of Baton Rouge in conjunction with our Head Start program.
4 years ago, when you sought the office, Mayor, perhaps the biggest issue at that time was transportation. In the first term, the initial term of you being in office, are we headed in the right direction? And Steve Carter, are we headed in the right direction, or can you do better? Mayor?
I definitely think we're headed in the right direction with our Move EBR project. That was a clarion call from citizens back in 2016. We went to work, we passed it collaboratively, Democrats, Republicans, the largest infrastructure and roads and transportation project. By the end of this year, we're going to have 100 lights synchronized of our 200 light synchronization program. In addition to that, you remember when I came into office, there was a talk about the tram. It was only going to cover 4 miles. I decided that we needed to think big and not just for a small segment. And so now, because of thinking big and innovatively, we have the bus rapid transit on the Plank Road corridor that we just got $5 million from JP Morgan Chase to develop, and that is part of the 21st century transportation modality that people are talking about. Bike paths, walkable communities, all of that is part of our plan, much of it encompassed in our Move EBR project.
You know what's interesting, this is a fact, that each of us spend one day out of the year sitting in traffic. We sit there on the interstate, and I know that the mayor is talking about synchronization of lights. We've been talking about synchronization of lights since Pat's Screen.
It's happening.
Well, I hope it does, because yesterday I left church at 9 o'clock to go to visit my parents' gravesite. I was on North Boulevard. I stopped at 3 lights. I must have stayed there 45 seconds each light. Nobody was in the area. Nobody was on a cross street. Nobody was coming towards me. But I wasted that much time sitting there getting mad. And that's got to change. Our transportation in the city, there's some things that we need to do. I know that Move EBR is on the table. But, you know, the first project we did with Move EBR was go to Scotlandville and tear up a sidewalk and put another sidewalk in. I've got things I want to do that are bigger than that. We've got traffic problems, and I want to get my hands dirty and within EBR prioritize things where we can make sure that the citizens who are paying the tax dollars are happy.
One of the taboo topics in our parish is the issue of race and how we bring people together and the divide between North and South Baton Rouge. Representative Carter, what will you do to bring people of all backgrounds together?
You know, I love everyone, and I know most people in here do too. But certain people are born in zip codes that they just can't get out of the zip code. And we need to help these people. We need to get to know who these people are. And we need to make sure that whatever their problems are, we can work together to solve their problems. I mentioned the fact earlier about a young lady that may live on Hollywood, and she can't get to work. We've got to find what, you know, we don't have that much to do with the bus system, but I have a feeling why Gordon McKernan has those signs all over the bus, because you can't see in there because there's nobody on the bus system. We've got to solve that problem of helping people who don't have transportation to be able to get to work, to have a good job, and to enable them to be able to support their family. So not only our roads, but also our bus system needs to be reformed again. And I know we've worked on it, but it's got to be a priority to look at it again and solve the problem.
Can you repeat the question, Jim?
What did we do or you do to bring people together of all backgrounds?
Okay. So I will tell you, my life as this is something we both have in common. I like what you said, Representative Carter, that you love God. And so as a committed Christian, my life is founded in loving your neighbor as you love yourself. And so that is how I live my life, personally and as a leader in this community, and have lived my life. I believe one of the initiatives that we have taken is the Commission on Racial Equity and Inclusion. I can't wait for everyone to see the members who are on this commission who have just come up with their recommendations that will be coming forward. You won't hear from me, but you'll hear from this diverse group of individuals who are on this commission who will talk about their experiences, black, white, young, old, North Baton Rouge, South Baton Rouge, and their view of this city and parish and how we can all work together to come together along racial lines. It will be something exciting to hear.
Should we as a community remove all names of Confederate icons from public structures, from streets? What's your philosophy and your strategy regarding this, Mayor Broom and then Representative Clark?
So the Commission on Racial Equity and Inclusion was actually birthed out of the post-George Floyd killing and much of the unrest that was going on around the country and conversations that actually I had with citizens here in the community. And so one of those the issue that you just spoke about, rather, surrounding symbols and flags, let me just say this, symbols do matter. And so we've asked the commission to share with this community what are their thoughts about symbols, street names. Let's face it now, we live in the heart of what was once the slave trade, slavery, plantations, etc. And so that is part of the fabric. But how do we move forward addressing those symbols, those street names? Do we put more effort in economic uplifting of disinvested communities? How do we bring it all together? And that will be part of the report from the Corey Commission.
I know we've reviewed this quite a bit. We've talked about it quite a bit. What I would like to do would be to continue by bringing the community leaders and people together to discuss this topic. I don't see where it's a hot topic right now because I think we've solved most of the issues. At least I hope we have, because we have enough divide within our community already. And I'd hate for it to fester back up to where we have continued divide. So I would bring the community leaders together, people together that have an interest in this particular topic, hear what they have to say, and then whatever their decisions are and what we need to do, we'll accomplish the discussion and make sure that we do what they suggest that we do.
For whom did you vote for governor last year and for president this year?
Who's up? You always ask me that question. And a year ago, Sharon, you know what my answer was to that? That's why we have curtains.
That's right.
So I'm going to reverse it. Who did you vote for? The question was governor? Yeah. My dear friend who helped me an awful lot in the legislature, who worked very hard on education reform, is my good friend Eddie Risponi, and I'm not embarrassed to say that I voted for Eddie. The second question is in the current, well, there really, to be honest with you, there was only one candidate. In my estimation, I'm not sure about you, because I know you voted for Biden, and I voted for Trump.
Another difference. I voted for John Bell Edwards as governor, and I voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for president and vice president.
You obviously voted for the candidates from your respective parties, and Mayor, why are you a Democrat? And Representative Carter, why are you a Republican? What is the distinction between the parties that causes you to be affiliated as you are, Mayor?
That's a question we don't often get asked, I should say. But basically, I believe that neither party has all the answers. Neither party is perfect, but I do believe that when it comes to issues of equity and inclusion, that the Democratic Party certainly embraces a lot of my principles of how people should be treated, and being concerned oftentimes for the least of these. I have been very concerned about uplifting disinvested communities, as an example, right here in Baton Rouge. And so issues that keep us divided, such as poverty and other issues that are connected to poverty, certainly concern me. And I believe that the Democratic Party does have a platform that addresses those issues surrounding equity and inclusion and lifting everyone up.
Back when I was had a chance to register whether I was Democrat or Republican, that was many years ago. They had no Republicans. I was the first person that I know of in my area that registered to be a Republican, and that was when we had closed primaries. So I never voted probably for about 10 years. And you could take all of us Republicans and go to a phone booth, and we had phone booths, and put us all in there, and we still have room for 2 or 3 more people. So I've always been a Republican. And the main reason I've been a Republican is I'm very pro-business. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I also feel like that the Republican Party, from an education standpoint, is more pro-choice. I really believe in pro-choice. I want every youngster to have an opportunity. I know I've beat this dead horse to death, but I don't care if you're homeschooled. I don't care if you're in public school. I don't care if you're in charter. I don't care where you are. I want everyone to have an opportunity to get a good education. And I really believe the Republican Party stands for that. And that's why I'm a Republican and proud to be it.
You have touted your pro-business credentials, Representative Carter. What will you do in the next 4 years if you are elected mayor to stimulate business activity and economic growth in our parish? And Mayor, what is your stance on what you'll do to make this a better environment, what you have done in the last 4 years along those lines?
Well, I think we have an awful lot to offer here without having to go too far. I think we need to really take the hospital district. One of the best kept secrets in America is Pennington. And I think we need to take the hospital district, grow it to where it's sort of like the same district that's in Birmingham, Alabama. But the other thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that if we do encourage and recruit businesses to come here, we've got to clean up our own act a little bit before they get here. That being that we need to make sure that the litter is taken care of, blight's taken care of, and make sure that we do the things that are necessary when these people leave the Baton Rouge airport and come into town, that they're proud of the city. And we need to also make sure that we do a better job, obviously, with crime, because when they go into their hotel room, they turn on the TV, and what's the first thing they see is another murder. So we've got some work to do on our own front here, but I do think we can encourage businesses to come here and cultivate them and work hard to take all of the things that we have as assets here and work on them to make them better.
Over my past first term as mayor, I have worked diligently on public-private partnerships to drive our economy and to respond to many of our issues. I established a mayor's business roundtable, and I have notable businesses from every level that represent the fabric of Baton Rouge who have been my council group as we have looked at economic development and employment and jobs here in Baton Rouge. I will tell you that I'm proud of the fact that we were put on the map by companies like eBay with their retail revival program that has empowered hundreds of small businesses. In addition, Amazon. And right now we have putting back into commerce through a public-private partnership a empty building for 15 years with the Howe Place development now, where I courted Eichner to bring a primary care clinic there, as well as OSHA's behavioral health. And I will continue to use that formula of public-private partnerships, as well as getting feedback from the men and women who represent our business community here.
Before we go to the final statements from the candidates, in the judgment of each of you, what is your opponent's biggest strength and weakness? Mayor?
I would say that my opponent's biggest strength is that he is a nice man. And I would probably say that the weakness is that he knows very little about city parish government and its operations and what it will take to move our city 4 years forward. But the first one, he's a nice guy.
I echo the same sentiment for a wonderful young lady, and it's been a pleasure to work with you in the legislature. That's the main thing, she really is. As far as some deficiencies and strengths, the record speaks for itself, and that the crime situation is just out of control in my opinion. I think there's some things that we need to do to improve the crime. I do think that from a flooding standpoint, there's some things that we're doing, but we have to do an awful lot more. I go to the TV stations the other day. A young lady was really concerned about the rains that we had this past weekend because her drainage ditch had not been cleaned, and her house has not flooded once but twice, and she's very concerned about it flooding for the third time, and that's just not acceptable. So there are a number of things I think as a city we can work on and do a better job. But as a human being, Sharon, you're tops on the list.
We have a few minutes left, so if anyone has a question beyond anything I've asked, yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak to whether you think the drainage infrastructure is better now than it was 4 years ago, and what specifically your administration will do to improve it in the next 4 years.
All right, what about drainage infrastructure and how it is now as it was relative to the way it was 4 years ago and what is being done? Mayor?
I certainly think that drainage and infrastructure has improved over the past 4 years. We do have a scheduled maintenance of canal cleaning from our DPW department, so I wanted to start there with city parish government. But I also will tell you that, I totally get the concerns around drainage because my home flooded in 2016. You've heard me say it time and time again. And so now, through the Stormwater Master Plan, we have a plan that's going to take us forward with a strategic approach. This has never been done to address drainage, $50 million. And then we have our 5 tributaries project, which I secured dollars in collaboration with our federal and state partners to cover Wars Creek, Jones Creek, Bayou, Fountain, Blackwater Bayou, and Beaver Bayou. All of these tributaries have a direct impact on the flow of water. So yes, things are getting better.
As I travel around and visit, drainage is definitely a problem. And I need to give credit to Congressman Graves. Congressman Graves secured a large number of dollars for the drainage situation here in Baton Rouge, as well as the 4 rivers or 5 rivers that she's talking about for us to try to clean up and do the job. So I've got to give him an awful lot of credit for it. But we still have a lot of work to do. As I said before, the young lady who lives up in North Baton Rouge, her ditch has not been cleaned. I know I live in the Bocage area, and if you go down Carpet Boulevard when it rains hard, it may be a foot of water there, and yet you go 25 yards down the road, and there's Ward's Creek that hadn't been cleaned, but I don't understand why the water can't flow off the street into Ward's Creek. So we have some issues that I'd like to take a look at and try to solve to help the citizens of our parish.
Chris?
This question is for Mr. Carter and Mayor Rouge. 2 weeks ago, due to no one's fault, WBRZ debate had to be postponed due to concern about COVID. Since then, WBRZ management says they've gotten kind of lukewarm responses from both of you about the rescheduling of that debate. Will you guys both commit today to debate each other on WBRZ Tuesday and Wednesday of this week?
And again, I apologize. My son had COVID the day of the event, and I just had to, I felt compelled to tell everybody because I had been in close contact with him and I had not been tested. Since that day I was tested, and subsequently I stayed in making sure that I did not go out in public or do anything for 5 or 6 days, got retested, and I tested negative. So I apologize. It just happened, and I had no control over it, but I wanted to do what I thought was the right thing to do. You know, it's late in the game right now. We only have 3 or 4 more days. We've had this debate today. We've got a debate scheduled, I think, Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. My schedule is pretty full, and I don't know if I'm going to be in a position to try to restructure some stuff this late in the game to try to have another debate.
First of all, I want to say I want to thank you, Steve, for doing the responsible thing as it relates to COVID-19. What you did was very responsible, and I applaud you for that. As Mr. Carter said, at this point, my schedule is pretty booked throughout the week. As everybody knows, this is the last week before the election, December 5th is right upon us. And so we've scheduled things weeks out in advance, and according to my scheduler, I'm not available on those days.
Beth, Courtney?
After Rita, there was a thought that New Orleans, came up and we helped them create it. If Baton Rouge was going to be leading the state of Louisiana in population and growth, etc., I want each of you to explain why is it better to live in Baton Rouge than
Beth, Courtney, if you did not hear the question, wants to know from the candidates why it is better to live in Baton Rouge rather than New Orleans. And since this is the last question before their final statements, what does this community mean to you? What has it meant to you as an individual? But let's start with Beth's question about why Baton Rouge, in her estimation, is better than New Orleans. Mayor?
Well, it's so ironic. I didn't, when you said that, I started searching through my emails because I received an email from a woman who used to live in New Orleans who told me all the reasons why she loves living in Baton Rouge. And so I was going to go down and share that information with you. But some of what she said is certainly what I believe we all know about Baton Rouge. Now, I'm not going to do a whole lot of contrasting Baton Rouge with New Orleans because I do have a great relationship with my sister Mayor Latoya Cantrell. So I will just say what I think about Baton Rouge and why I stayed here 41 years ago when my parents came to relocate, my father being from Ethel, Louisiana. The people, we have some of the best people in Baton Rouge. The culture, we have a very thriving culture that makes people want to come to Baton Rouge. Our food, our institutions of Southern University and LSU, our Pennington Biomedical Research Center, certainly, and our lush environment like we're standing here right now enjoying. So we have a lot of assets that I believe makes Baton Rouge unique. Not to mention that we are the capital city. And I will tell you, we are a regional leader. I'm sitting with parish presidents around our area talking about how we move the region forward. Those are some of the things I love about Baton Rouge.
I've lived in Baton Rouge all of my life. I attended public schools here. I attended LSU. Had a chance to meet you, and we had a good time while we were in student government, what have you, at LSU. I love this city. My daughter lives here with my 4 grandchildren. I want my 4 grandchildren not to move. I want them to live here so I can enjoy their lives. Also the same with my son. My son's in the building business, and he moved from Salt Lake here and loves Baton Rouge. We have an awful lot to offer. We have our 2 universities as well as the community college system. We have the Mississippi River that we should maybe utilize even more than what we do right now. I traveled around with my son to see every state capital. I drove him, and every state capital had a river. Every state capital had a very vibrant downtown. And also another thing that was interesting, most of these capitals had a minor league baseball park. I'm trying to get a minor league baseball park here. But this is a great city. It's got great people. It's got an awful lot to offer. And I hope that more and more people will want to live in our city, and less people want to exit our city.
Final statements from the candidates, and we thank them for joining us today on a chilly afternoon here. But Representative Carter, you go first, and Angela said 1 or 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
This has been a great event. I thank the press for all that you do, and Jim, thank you for what you do too. Your radio show is very well received across the South. Everyone, I want to wish you the very best of luck. I enjoy our relationship. Let me just say a couple of things real quick. I got into this race because I love our city. I think we have problems. As I talk to people, they're very, very concerned about the crime rate. We've got to do something about that. That's top on my list, as I said before. I think we need to bring in the best criminal experts in the country and say, what can we do to solve this problem? We have a problem. And like I said earlier, I mean, of 4 years, our murder rate may reach 450 people. And some of them are youngsters. Some of them are kids. That's just not right. The other thing we need to continue to work on is our race relations. I enjoy visiting with people. I enjoy talking to people. I want to bring people together to better understand what their problems are and how can we improve their quality of life. That's the main thing. We want people here in Baton Rouge to enjoy Baton Rouge, to want to live here, to get other people that want to come here and be attracted to Baton Rouge. Right now, I feel like we're in a little bit of a funk. We need to make sure we come together and unify this city. As I said earlier about kids, I want everyone, not just kids, but everyone to have hope. I want people to enjoy life and want to come to Baton Rouge and say, I'm in wherever it might be in Arkansas, but I've heard about Baton Rouge and I want to move to Baton Rouge. I'm very active. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy working to solve problems. In the first primary, 52% of the people voted not to re-elect our current mayor. If that's the case, I ask those people to go back to the polls if they still feel the same way and vote for me as your next mayor president. Thank you very much.
Thank the press club for hosting us today on this Risk Monday. And it is important that we have conversations like this as we've narrowed it down to the 2 of us, so the voters will know where we agree and where we differ. You know, as you've heard me say time and time again, we've had some challenging times during the past 4 years. And we're currently dealing with the biggest health and economic crisis that our parish has ever faced. Now, I'm proud of the leadership that my administration has provided during this crisis, with facilities like the Baton Rouge General, Mid-City. You heard me talk about Howell Place and Ochsner and Oceans Health. We passed $1 billion infrastructure program that dedicates our taxes to specific projects. And I will say that the citizens, and I thank all of you, trusted us with that project of Move EBR because of transparency and honesty. So it would be a travesty if anyone thought about tampering with those dollars for Move EBR, because we made a commitment to the people. And that's one of the challenges that people have with public services. When you make a commitment, you go back on it. So I've heard my opponent talk about the fact that he wants to raid all the funds, including Move EBR, where the citizens won't go for that. These aren't just dollars that he's proposing taking away, whether it's BREC, whether it's Move EBR, whether it's other entities like the Council on Aging. Citizens voted for all of those agencies and their funding streams. And so we have shown during the past 4 years leadership in trying times, but transformative leadership. Look at our record and think about how do you want Baton Rouge to move forward. Do you want an equitable community, an inclusive community, a community that is on the horizon to thrive and prosper? I encourage you and I ask you for your vote and your support on December 5th. Thank you.
Well, we thank you, two outstanding public servants, and hopefully everybody will vote who is watching this, and we'll be back very soon with another press club. Thanks for coming today. Let's go around.